I wonder if it's not beginner's luck on the one hand. I also think that the supply of case studies in my particular field, namely managerial economics, was not very satisfactory to me. So there was a clear issue that I needed to solve. This was a classroom, a class, an audience that I knew. So it was in this problem-solving approach that I think I found a really good topic, one that I was able to sell, and one that I was able to deal with in a constructive way. And I think that ultimately that's one of the secrets of writing good case studies. It's really how committed you feel towards the problem and how relevant the problem actually is in your mind. It was a confidence booster, to be certain. It was also a recognition that all economists across the world could write case studies. Economists usually don't like to write case studies. They find it not to be very representative. But on the other hand, I think in economics, there's also this long tradition of paying attention to precedent, trying to think about what has happened in the past, and I think this is exactly what case studies are supposed to be. So it was a reconciliation between my field, usual field, economics, traditional field of economics, and my field of adoption, namely teaching MBAs, right, and even executive MBAs. And I think that this also means a lot in terms of the opportunity for people in academics to pay attention to the way they tell stories. This is not blasphemy. I think it's more about the ability to communicate to a broader audience on key stakes that are influencing the business landscape today. And I think that's also something very important. I noticed very quickly that if you were going to teach in MBA programs, you needed case studies, which were the normal expectation with this type of audience. On the other hand, it wasn't very clear to me what form of supply there was out there. There were a few, easy to adapt from time to time, others a little bit less, but as the French would say, you're never really better served than by yourself. So I tried to basically act upon the flaw that I saw and basically write that own case. One of my mentors, who might see this video, so I will not quote him, but once told me that the moment you write your own case studies and you teach on your own case studies, you see class satisfaction go dramatically up. And I thought to myself, the old man is going completely nuts. That's not true. And the fact of the matter is that the old man might be going nuts, but he was absolutely right. I think that there are advantages because when you teach with your own case studies, you're basically teaching with your own stories. You're teaching with your own gut feeling. And I think that business, obviously, there's a scientific part to it. There's an analytical part to it that's quite universal. But I think that the intuitive part to it, the gut feeling, also plays an important role. And it helps participants, I think, develop their own intuition about issues that is extremely important in their future careers. I think that there are many Amazon cases written on strategy. This one is turned a little bit more towards more traditional microeconomic concepts. I think it starts to focus on the competition issue, not only in the traditional questions related to antitrust, related to taxing issue, related to management of human resources, but also related to one fundamental problem that economists are very worried about, which is too big to fail. Associating too big to fail to Big Bang, that's something very easy and very straightforward that I think any MBA participant is able to do. Doing this in the case of Amazon is a little bit more complex. And this is what the literature is increasingly talking about. Amazon has become so central in some economies that any evolution of what Amazon does might actually create and might have wider ramifications for the rest of the economy. And I think that's a key economic issue that needs to be tackled and a key microeconomic case study. So when you write a case study, you have to have a good story. And when you have a good story, it means you have well-identified protagonists. And in particular, you have to have key stakeholders that the audience can relate to. Relating to Jeff Bezos, well, it's kind of paradoxical. It might be hard on the one hand because Jeff Bezos is exceptional, But it is a role model, I think, for many people you have in MBA programs. It's, I think, the best illustration of someone who started out small with a great business idea and managed to build an empire. So a hero in the sense of a role model, but I think a hero as well in the sense perhaps of a Greek tragedy, because in any Greek tragedy you have protagonists, and from time to time you end up in a situation where you realize the hero is still a human being with limits, and therefore you should be careful about, granting the status of a demigod to all of these big tech giant CEOs when they might make faux pas, when they might actually make mistakes. I think that's a great business lesson as well, a great lesson in terms of creative destruction, a concept that economists are so attached to, saying they made it and they were able to creatively destroy, but beware, because part of the lesson is also about hubris, and it's also about the ability of these firms to continue being successful, which shouldn't be taken for granted. And there's that continuous effort that's necessary. And I think that any MBA participant that comes out with a clear mind about that specific idea, well, that's already part of the success. The case study is a form of historical analysis that is interesting because it provides a precedent. It provides a precedent, and it grounds, I think, many concepts that can feel abstract and that can feel theoretical into reality. And I think that it provides participants with a great way of gaining ownership of these concepts. I used to teach case studies and open up with the question, what is this case about? And when I realized no one wanted to answer my question in my early years of teaching, I realized I was doing something wrong. The moment I changed that question from what is this case about into what would you do if you were protagonist A or protagonist B, that's where I got a lot more traction in the classroom conversations. I think this says a lot about the ability of the human brain to react not to general ideas, general concepts, but to be far more in concrete situations. And especially, obviously, for MBA audiences in particular. This is, I think, where the case study is so constructive for this type of audience. I've published already a couple on North Korea, on Greece, turned a little bit more to geopolitical issues. There's one almost ready on the economics of oil, to stay on the topic of microeconomics. There's one last case study in preparation on big tech giants and their ability to basically anticipate the type of skill sets that might be required in a changing world.